Hello, this is Michael Garino, and I'm going to give you a quick overview of the new preview environments feature of Plural flows. Before we get into the details of the actual feature, though, I just want to give a quick overview of why preview environments are actually useful, just to give a motivation behind the feature in case it's unfamiliar to some people. So a very common problem I've seen, certainly in my prior experience as a software engineer, but I also from having it interacted with a number of other companies um, as well, is dev environments are frequently basically a war zone of improperly tested or just competing changes. That leads to just overall instability of the dev environment. Frequently, things will be going down, corruption of data in some cases, and also just ineffective testing processes. If you don't know if the thing that you're testing is being broken because of your own change versus someone else's, it's actually kind of hard to make a judgment call as to whether or not to release that into a prior stage, and can actually risk um, bubbling bugs or instability into your prod environment and affecting your user base. Preview environments are basically meant to solve a lot of these problems. So the concept of a preview environment is what you're going to do is make a clone of your dev service or staging service based on the code that's actually in your development branch, that allows you to disaggregate those changes from the main development environment, allow them to be tested in isolation, and keep the possibility of trampling from happening between a lot of different in-flight changes. It also just sort of mimics your actual development process, which in a Git-based environment is going to use branching. It's not going to have like one specific monolithic change set that you're always going to be using. Um, cool. So how does that actually get implemented within Plural? Um, the main concept behind Plural's preview environment is built on what's called a preview environment template. In this case, you can see we have one of these registered here for our test service. And the general gist is whenever a branch is created, or sorry, a PR is created that actually has that template, you will just basically reference it with both the plural flow annotation to associate the PR with the current flow, and then also this plural preview environment with the name of the template to say that this flow should have the actual preview environment created. The opt-in nature of this is meant by design. Very frequently, you'll have kind of churny changes within a code base, things like dependent dependency updates, or just very minor, like small bore changes that don't require the additional compute of a full preview environment to be used to actually validate the correctness of that change. Cool. The actual definition of a preview environment template, for what it's worth, can be seen right here. This is the actual CRD that defines it. It's referencing, in this case, the flow test dev service, which you could see right here deploying into the staging cluster that we have configured. But it's also, in this case, just overriding the Helm values of the chart that's actually deploying it. In this case, using a convenience commit SHA that we're going to constantly be updating as we see the PR has a new commit in its feature branch. Another thing that's worth mentioning is you always do have to prefix the namespace of the preview environment with the namespace of the source service if you are going to customize it. So in this case, we are putting it into a dedicated namespace just to make sure we don't trample anything. That is also by design, just to make sure that you don't actually drop a preview environment into a namespace of like an adjacent team that might have secrets that you aren't supposed to access. Cool. So let's get a preview environment started. So what we've done is we just, in our demo service that we've been using for a number of other cases within demonstrating plural flows, we made a very basic little code change, just adding another endpoint to this very, very simple Flask app. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just quickly copy the annotation here and make a commit. So and I just got to paste in those annotations, which looks good, and then push it to a new branch and create a pull request. And might as well add a label and create it from there. Cool. So you should see that Plural is detected pretty much instantaneously, that does map into a flow and a preview environment, and it's building that preview. So the entire preview environment process is going to be fully documented within the PR using these review comments. This one's going to take a little bit of time too, because if you look back at the actual YAML, it is referencing the commit SHA. So that this is expecting us to build a new image and tag it with this scheme. And if I wanted to, I could actually show you the GitHub Actions that is doing that tagging. So we just use, in our case, the common Docker metadata action, which does a pretty good job of actually adding tags for PR and SHA and all sorts of other things that might be relevant. And then it's just pushed with the Docker build and push action, which is a nice way to do multi-source Docker image pushes. Cool. So if I go back here, you're going to see, the actual Docker image being built. It should be relatively soon before it's actually pushing that live for us. And if we go to Plural itself, we can go and see that we do have this preview environment that's in the instances list associated with the flow. The actual preview environment is, waiting for Docker to actually have that image push. So the pod is in pending status. So if we go back to here, you should be able to see that fully wrap up. And I truly don't know why it takes as long as it does for pip to download dependencies. Honestly, seems like it should be a pretty basic task, but for whatever reason, pip is slow. So we're waiting for that. Cool. So you should be able to see that it's pushing it now. And you can see the tagging happening for the PR and the SHA. And the action should be wrapping up. And then eventually you'll see the pod will detect that the image is available. You can see it's just been basically back off retrying the actual Docker pull. But eventually you'll see the image available and then download and deploy it. Great. So you can see the pod is now running. We can give it a look at the actual logs, and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. This specific service fails occasionally to basically simulate failures, but within about a second or so, probably 30 seconds to a minute, it will go to a fully running state, and I'll show you how the PR comment changes as a result of that. But one thing that's actually worth mentioning is this is a very common pattern with like front-end based deployment engines like Vercel or Netlify, where you have a static site that has a preview environment with the running demoable endpoint that's generated. That's a lot easier in the case of a static site. You can see that this has gone into running state, by the way, and we can go in here and see that the comment has marked it as being ready. But it's a very simple example for a static site because deployment of those is basically entirely trivial. In the case of a backend environment, there's a little bit more that goes on within that backend environment that you need to do to be able to create a full clone of that service. And the main concern there is secret management. So the backend service will oftentimes have things like database connection strings, IAM credentials, API tokens for things like Stripe or whatever other external API you might be using. All of those we need to migrate with the service. So with the GitOps based approach that Plural provides, where almost certainly all of the secrets are actually basically defined within the Helm chart or whatever it might be that you're deploying. But also with Plural's unified secret management, those can very trivially be migrated along the clone. So a good example of that is this service does actually have secrets that it was cloned in from its source service. So you can see it has this example secret that's associated with it. And if I were to go to the flow right here and look at its actual base service, that is the exact same secret that you had right there. So that could very easily be a database connection string that you're migrating over or whatever it might be that you need. Cool. And then the last part of flows that we need to show is just it being deprovisioned when I do decide to either merge or close the PR. So why don't we just merge this in? It looks good. Nothing wrong with it. And then what we can do is check back in, and you should be able to see that this preview environment does, in fact, get destroyed. Cool. So that's the extent of preview environments with flows. Hopefully that is relatively straightforward. Feel free to consult our docs if you want to see any more details. And if you're interested, don't hesitate to reach out, and we're happy to give a more targeted demo to your specific use case. Thanks for the time. Bye.